If you hear that sound, that means you are a Syndicate agent. And that means the Syndicate High Command will have certain tasks of you. If you press C and you see this menu that says you're a solo antagonist and you have some objectives, that means, well, you are indeed part of the Syndicate. There are a bunch of objectives in the game, and I will explain all of them. We'll start off with all of the steal objectives, and like the one I got is steal the captain ID card. There are actually 4 steal objectives related to the captain directly, and they are all going to usually be found on the captain, who will look something like this. Captain bedrooms are also usually attached to the area referred to as the bridge, which is almost always signified by these blue doors that let you look into an area with a bunch of consoles. The captain will usually have all 4 of these on them. The captain ID, that's just their PDA, their ID card in their PDA. The antique laser pistol, which is the captain's sidearm, the captain's jetpack, which is a golden jetpack, and the nuke disc, which is the most prized possession in the game. If the captain does not have it on them, you're going to have to break into their bedroom and hope that it is there. These doors can be hacked, you can get the proper command access to get into the bridge, and then you need captain access to get further. Or, of course, you can use your TC to purchase things that let you break into these rooms very quickly and easily. So, for example, Authentication Disruptor will let me get through their doors. And here's where things are going to differ. The suit storage unit is going to have the jetpack inside of it. So this is where you would get the jetpack. However, not all stations are the same with this. Sometimes this suit storage will not exist, and everything instead will be inside the captain's locker. So in here we have the nuke disc, and by the way, pinpointers point to the nuke disc. So if you ever steal it, people like the head of security will be able to track you down with the extra pinpointers. In here as well, you're going to find their ID card. Sometimes you can find additional ID cards. For example, there's an additional one on their table. Usually there's always one extra card very close proximity to where the original spawns. The antique laser also usually has its own glass box. However, if it's not in the glass box, it will then of course spawn in their locker. I'm not trying to use a dog bit. And this can also just be used, pretty much you can get every single objective stolen from here with just an authentication disruptor if it is not on their person themselves. So there is the laser, the nuke disc, the ID card, and the jetpack respectively. Moving on with more steal objectives, we have the Quartermaster's Golden Knuckledusters and the Quartermaster's Requisition Digi-board. Quartermasters are usually going to end up having their requisition board on their belt slot, so because they can actually wear it on their belt slot, and they'll probably end up having the Knuckledusters either literally on their hands or probably in a backpack. Either way, just like everyone else, if it is not on their person themselves, you can find both of these in their normal locker, like so. Authentication Disruptor will get you through there. There's a bunch of garbage in here, so it might take you a second to find it, but there is their requisition board and the Golden Knuckledusters. And I didn't mention it, but the way you complete steal objectives is you literally just have them on your person. You get them in your hand, a backpack, your pocket, jacket pocket. If it is in your person somewhere, somehow, even if you're dead floating off in space, you will green text as long as it's on your body. It doesn't even specify you have to be alive. It just has to be on you. The CMO has 2 items that you must steal from them. One is the Hypospray, which is tricky to get because it is often in use by the CMO. It could literally be in their hand, their pocket, their backpack, their belt. Somebody else could have literally borrowed it. And also, by the way, you have to compete with other Syndicate agents sometimes with these stealing objectives, so you may not always be able to get direct access to these things without fighting other Syndicate agents. So speed is of the essence a lot of the times of stealing. It feels like sometimes it's a better idea to wait, but if you wait, somebody else might steal it, and good luck finding it on the person who it doesn't belong to. The handheld crew monitor is the other thing you have to steal, and this is also usually probably in their backpack, but I have seen servers allow CMOs to give this out to paramedics, so this one can be really hard to find. Of course, if you can't find it, look for these blue doors somewhere in medical. You can sometimes shift-click doors as well to see the labeling if you do not know the lay of the map. So the CMO's bedroom, inside their locker, there will end up being both the Hypospray and a handheld crew monitor right there. Chief Engineer only has a singular steal objective, and that is their Magboots. These Magboots are pretty much always going to be found on their feet, but of course, if you cannot find them, you'll end up finding it in their bedroom. Again, you can shift-click a lot of these to find their bedroom, and inside it, it will be in their suit storage unit. If it is not in the suit storage unit, or if the map just doesn't have a suit storage unit, you may have to check inside their locker. This is just, again, map dependent. Also, another quick tip If you have access to a station map, whether it be handheld or on a wall, this can make it a lot easier to end up finding these rooms in general. So this, like, for example, is literally labeled CE, CMO is labeled, QM is labeled. I don't believe every station labels it as well or as easily as Bagel does, but it could be something worth checking out if you do not know the station perfectly. Next is probably one of the most difficult ones in the game due to the target. It is the Head of Security's Energy Shotgun. Pretty much every head of security I've ever seen will have it on their back, so at least it's very obvious where this one is. It's people like using their suit storage for this gun. However, if it is not on the head of security, which if there's a head of security, it's most likely going to be, you have to break into their office and it'll be in their locker. It is a pretty massive weapon, so at least it's easy to see the sprite. And if you're going to steal this, you do not want this on your back because somebody is going to notice. Another quick tip, if you do not know who is the current leader of a department, you can always press E in your PDA, go to Programs, go to Crew Manifest, and it'll tell you the current people who are assigned a job. However, not everyone gets their job titles changed, so if there wasn't a head of security and somebody got promoted to head of security, they may not still be named a head of security on your Crew Manifest. Also, the Crew Manifest is unreliable and records get deleted, so if you can't see somebody who is that job, it might be worth scouting out the station a little bit to see if anyone has taken up the gear, if you see if you can spot like the CE's boots or the energy shotgun on their back. Otherwise, it may still be in their lockers. Next, we have the research director, and you must steal their experimental suit or end up stealing their handheld teleporter. Pretty much every RD I've ever seen will end up having the teleporter in a pocket or in their bag. And RDs are pretty 50-50, honestly, about whether or not they wear their Hardsuit because it is bulky and slows you down. Of course, if you can't find it, this one can be a little bit more complicated per map. I see sometimes the suit storages in RD's rooms like Bagel will not actually have it, so this one's an EVA, so don't be fooled by that. You usually have to go deeper into an RD's room if they have more space. And, for example, check their locker. This will have the teleporter pretty much every time, if it's not on them, of course, the handheld teleporter. And then there's the Hardsuit. So again, sometimes the Hardsuits are in the lockers. It's just depending on the map. Stealing this is tough because you literally need a duffel bag in order to fit this in an inventory. So it's really difficult to actually hide this thing. But if you have access to a duffel bag, you can stuff it in there. And finally, the most evil objective of all. The Hop technically doesn't have any objectives related to them anymore. But Ian is an objective because you need the meat. In order to get the meat out of Ian, they must be dead, and fully dead, not just critical. Ian is tankier than you'd expect, so you have to keep hitting them until you see the death gasp, and then you have to use a sharp object to butcher them, which something like a energy sword can do. You just have to right click and click butcher. I think you can alt click, I don't know. Right click butcher works. So you need a knife, energy sword, something you can purchase that's sharp. And inside, you'll get 2 cuts of prime Corgi meat, and you have to just obviously stash this on you. So since there's 2 pieces of this, actually 3 Syndicate agents at a time can have this objective, so you could steal both and prevent another person from getting it. Probably best to try hiding the evidence that way. Either way, Pop technically is not a target other than potentially being a kill target, which we'll get into right now. Kill objectives are very simple. A kill objective just requires you to kill a person fully. If they're in critical, it will not be a green text. If they die and get revived, it will not be a green text. So if you ever have a prevent somebody from reaching CENTCOM, you have to essentially make sure that nobody ever recovers their body or has the ability to recover their body. So if you kill them and let their body rot, they're most likely not going to be recovered. If you give them with blunt damage or toss them into space where no one can find them, that will basically guarantee the green text. There is also a command version of this. So, for example, killing a random person, you just have to make sure that they do not reach CENTCOM. However, a command member, you must make sure they're dead and don't reach CENTCOM. You can't just ignore them and hope that you succeed. So technically, this objective means I don't actually have to kill this person. I could just not let them get on evac. But if it was a command member, it would say they must die and not reach CENTCOM. So just something to keep in mind. There is a slight difference between killing, but in the end, you should be killing these people and preventing people from ever finding their bodies. You can also get fellow Syndicate agents as a target, so not everyone you're going to be jumping may look as innocent or maybe as innocent as they seem. There are 2 objectives related to fellow Syndicate agents. One is the keep a traitor alive, and all you have to do is make sure that they are literally not dead when the round ends. And then there's also one where you have to help a traitor complete at least half of their objectives. And that one's obviously a little bit harder, but depending on the objectives, it could also basically mean they just have to stay alive and maybe even steal one object. Sometimes just staying alive might even be enough to help them succeed, because they could have been somebody they needed to kill, also just didn't make it on the evac. So technically these can auto-complete, but they're pretty self-explanatory. Just you literally do what the text says, either keep them alive or help them. And of course, Syndicate agents aren't always inclined to help you, so be very cautious about this. And on to the last two objectives. Escape to CENTCOM alive and unrestrained means you have to get on the evac shuttle and just be not dead when you are transported to CENTCOM. If you are in handcuffs, you will also fail this, because that would count as being restrained. So for this to work, you must essentially just not get detected, or make sure there's no one who knows that you need to be handcuffed. So like you could have been caught and then let go. As long as you are just not literally restrained and still breathing oxygen when you make it to CENTCOM on the evac shuttle, this will succeed. And finally, the rarest objective in the game is Die a Glorious Death. It's literally just dying. If you are dead, not breathing air, it will be green. If you get revived, it will turn red. So if you give yourself, you could jump into space, you could slash suicide if you want to be boring about it. That will allow you to succeed permanently. There's always additional objectives with this though, and those are kill objectives. So you're never going to just get Die a Glorious Death and do nothing. It's going to be usually take 3 people with you and then die. So most servers also pretty much unrestrict what you're allowed to do if you get this objective. I know Wisden does, Harmony does. I don't know what other servers do beyond that, but those are, well, I mean, Wisden's one of the biggest. So like on Wisden, for example, if you get Die a Glorious Death, you're allowed to go a lot harder at doing whatever you want, like even up to Singulusing, Tesla loosing, you name it. Of course, check server rules. I'm not 100% sure that's how it is, but that's how it was not too long ago. Anyways, that's actually it for all the objectives right now. Objectives come and go. Expect this to be out of date probably in a minute. Sometimes the objectives are unchanged for months, sometimes they get changed every hour, but otherwise, that is really it. Thankfully, most of the objectives are pretty self-explanatory. Again, you press C to see this menu, and that is it. Thank you for watching.